Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. So today's video is going to be reviewing the Arnold Classic lineup. So obviously I was there front and center, and it was only 1 week ago that the Arnold Classic actually happened, which is crazy because it feels like it was ages ago now. But I'm going to be going through the entire live stream for everyone's individuals and all of the call outs, first call outs, kind of seeing what happened. I love going through the live stream so I can kind of review everything and see kind of how everything planned out, how it looked, and give you my opinion on it. I'm also going to be going through everyone's individual routines and seeing what can be done either better, what I liked about their posing routines specifically, and all that fun stuff. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so this is what they always do. They do a first round, so a comparison round to start off with. So we don't, obviously, this isn't like the first call outs or anything like that. This is numerical call outs, as they always do. They usually do this in a large NPC competition, and they always do this in a IFBB Pro show every single time. So you'll always see a numerical call out first before a first call out or before the individuals. So at the moment, we can't see everyone. There is someone over here on the side. So if I'm honest, when I first saw this call out, Jordan Brannon really stood out to me because of her glute projection. I remember seeing this in live and like being like, damn, her glutes look so much more full than I've ever seen them before. So it was really, really, really good to see, if I'm honest. The only thing I would say about this girl on the side, on the right-hand side, make sure you are not that far away, because at the moment she's really far away from everyone else, which makes her kind of stand out for the wrong reasons. So you want to try and make sure that you're close to the competitors and where you need to be. Okay, this is basically the top five. Yeah, you've got Ashlyn. Firstly, I was obsessed with Amy's pink. Spoiler alert, I kind of already knew she was wearing a different color before this, but I didn't know what it was going to look like, but it looks so good. I really, really like pink. I also like Ariana in pink as well. I think she looks really good, or Ari in pink. I think she looks really, really good. I think pink, is it going to come for a comeback? I don't know. But I do like that there was a lot more diversity in colors. So it wasn't just your normal purple and that on red, and that was it. I think a few people did different colors, and it was nice to see this. This was probably the strongest group. Ashlyn, Ari, Jazzy, Amy, their glutes. When I saw them in real life, I was like, damn, this is very, very strong lineup to start off with. So I would say this is probably the most difficult Arnold's, purely for the fact that they didn't have kind of a top runner in terms of a Miss Bikini Olympia. Obviously they had Angelica, but they haven't had a recent Miss Bikini Olympia like Laura Lee, Maureen, Jen. No one was there to kind of be that top runner. So it was really, really intriguing to see who was going to look their best. Demikia Carter, I always love her physique. I think she's got such an effortless way of posing. My main thing with her is her waist is so small. So like, that's where my eye immediately draws to, is her waistline. Such a small, tight waistline. And the way she flows and poses is just, again, like I said, so effortless and so poise. That's what I think about her when I see her posing routine online. I think the main thing she probably needs to work on is maybe just conditioning in the lower body. I think the main difference between all of them is just she has a little softer lower half than everyone else, and maybe a harder upper half. So maybe the main thing I'd say to work on, obviously, is just trying to balance those two out. But I think from a posing aspect is flawless. I love the way that she moves. I think she could probably use a bit of tempo though. So she moves kind of the same tempo throughout the whole of the routine. Maybe a few sharper movements and sharper transitions in some areas would really make her routine a bit more dynamic. Maria was a really good runner at this Arnold. I think she really stood out, and I think I knew she was going to be in that top five just because of her performance at the Olympia and how she looked. I love her posing. I think she looks very good. She flows very well. They all look really good. When it comes to the top level pros, they all look spectacular. I do think she probably could have taken her time a little bit more in some transitions though. So there was some transitions that were maybe faster than others. And I think she probably could have held like a bit more gaze with the eyes and all that type of thing, and some movements. So I think that's definitely something to work on, is taking the time just a little bit more. It's very easy to get nervous, especially being on the Arnold stage. Like there's only 10 of them up there. So it sometimes is easy to kind of just go through things quickly. But I think she had more time than she thought. So I think she could probably just take her time a bit more. Really hold each pose, hold each transition, and really like focus on facials a little bit more for sure. Jordan Brennan, I had the pleasure of working on her routine with her for the last 2 weeks of her prep. So obviously when I was in Arizona, we had a posing session, and from there till the Arnolds, we were able to send videos back and forth on the posing portal and all that type of thing. And she really improved. I think the main thing she really struggled with was confidence. And we really brought out her confidence and worked on her facial expressions more. Because the main thing is sometimes it's really difficult to know what you need to do with the facial expressions, and like confidence wise, how long do I need to hold the eye gaze for? How do I need to kind of like keep everything nice and smooth for? So we were really specific with those things and details and stuff, and it really brought out more of her routine, which I was really, really happy with. So that's the main thing we work on. I definitely see that more here. Her finals routine, I think, was a lot better. I was on this floor, obviously, because I did the Angels fashion show, and the floor was very uneven on this stage, which was kind of not massively disappointing, but it was hard to pose on. So it made a lot of the girls feel a lot more uneasy, because I spoke to a few people as well. Oh, the new champ. So everyone, I've said this from the beginning, Vanya has always been one of my favorite posers because she's just different. I think the way that she comes on stage, she has a lot of swagger when she first enters that stage. The only thing I would love to see is keeping that eye headline forwards. So when she kind of looks, she comes to the front, she has her head down, which I would love to see her beautiful makeup, hair, everything forwards the entire time. So in this position, this looks great. Love this. When she lands that front pose, keeping that head forwards and just using her eyes to look down the arm versus looking with the head down. That is my only critique with her routine. I think everything else flows so nicely and effortlessly. And again, like I said, she's different with how she moves. She has just a lot of confidence when she's going into her movements and stuff. The one thing I think she does differently between everything else is she has a lot of big movements. So you don't see a lot of people usually move the arms away from the art, like the body too much, or do big movements at all. And she does, but she makes it work. So I really like the way that it moves in that respect. Okay, Stassi, I think it's Stassi or Stacy. She was a new pro. Obviously, she won her pro card last year, which was really good. Again, massive congrats to her. So I think most of the time when you win your pro card the year before, you then get an automatic invite to the next Arnold's, or you're potentially getting more of an invite. I think the main thing I want to see from Stacy's routine is a bit more control. So obviously there was a little bit more of an arm movement here, which I think is different, but I think we just needed to probably have a bit more control with it when you're doing that kind of movement. Because when pros do big movements, obviously we have time to do it, but we want to try and make sure that it's perfect. So I think she just needed to work maybe a little bit more on that arm movement when you're at the back of the stage. But again, it's a nice movement. It just needs more work. Ashlyn, this was probably the best that Ashlyn's looked. I think this was the most her glutes have projected in a long time, like in terms of the density and stuff. I know she said recently that she still needs more density in the lower body and stuff, but her glutes were probably the densest I've seen on her frame for a very long time. She looks a lot more balanced from top to bottom now, because I know that's been her feedback previously before. In her front pose, she needs more balance because she was maybe slightly leaning, or she needed to build a little bit more upper body to balance it out. But she looks way more balanced in her front pose now, which is really good to see. I love her routine because it's very simple, but the way that she does it is very effective. So the sways, the movements, they're very efficient to her physique. So she has really nice long tie-ins. So when she sits into her glutes nicely, you can really see that come out through that transition. So she really knows what her strengths are, and she plays towards them really nicely. So it's nice and simple, easy, but it's showing off your physique well. So what I always try and say with posing is it never has to be too much, but it needs to be enough to show off everything that is your strengths within your routine. Ari is probably one of my favorite posers purely because of the way she has her facial expressions. I love how she just has this gaze, and like the way that she looks in her routine, she looks very comfortable and confident. And that's something sometimes that can't be practice. It just is, you just have that, you know? So when she's moving and posing and stuff, she kind of keeps that gaze really nice. She changes her facials often. And I really noticed that when she was on stage, because again, she has a simple routine, but to make it different and to make it flow nicer, she just changes her facial expressions just that little bit more. So I like it a lot. I really do. Jasmine Gonzalez. Jasmine's always been one of my favorite posers because she just, the way she moves, the way she has the confidence, she just has that kind of bad bitch energy when she walks forwards, and I love it. I honestly love to see it. I think her feedback was she needs to be a little less hard, which I think she knew when she kind of first walked out on stage, but it was a very, very impressive physique. Like this has definitely by far been one of her best physiques for sure, especially for her glutes, been the best her glutes have ever looked. Now, one thing I would say about her routine is you can see how she moves and she has a lot of flow in her hips, which she is very good at controlling. Now, a lot of people really try and want to get that when they step on stage. And it's something that really needs to be practiced a lot. Like you need to make sure that you're really practicing moving the hips and feeling comfortable with the movement as well. So I would say if you want to move like Jazzy, really try and focus on moving the hips better, because that's what I can see she does really, really well. Amy Delgado. Again, love the pink. This has probably been my fave. I love the red, but I think this pink just looks, it just pops really nicely. Looks really good on her. I don't think it looks like too much. I love it. I honestly love it. I think it looks great. Now, posing wise, I know she mentioned that in her feedback that her glutes need to be sat into less, which I do agree. I think she's definitely brought down her leg shape. I think now her glutes maybe look a little bit too overpowering in her front pose. Not too much though, but I'd love to see how it looks when she sits into her pose, maybe a little less. Now, posing wise, I've always been a fan of her routine. She's a lot sharper than I would say than a lot of the other girls when she poses. So I would love to see if when she does her routine, to try and slow down a little bit more and be just a bit more controlling. So that's going to be really exciting to kind of see what her routine looks like next moving forwards, going into, I think she's doing the Pittsburgh Pro next. That's going to be fun to see. And then we have Angelica, her final last dance. Honestly, I think I choked up when I watched the finals. I don't know if anyone else has, but when she took off her shoes and held up her shoes, that was like it for me. That really was such an incredible moment to like finish off her final year of competing. Honestly, it was great to see. So very, very excited to share that moment with her for sure as well. I loved her physique. I think she always looks incredible, especially because she's taken that such a long period of time off. Obviously coming, when she was in the Pro League before to what the Pro League is now, 4 years ago to now, she's really improved her physique and adapted what the standard is now for sure. I think main thing that Angelica's always had very, very clearly is confidence. She's always showed up and just worked that stage regardless of how she's feel or looks or anything like that. And that's the difference sometimes. Sometimes it makes a huge difference on just how you look confident wise. So it's really trying to make sure that you're not just doing your poses and hitting XYZ, but actually bringing that confidence as well makes a huge difference to your overall presence. Okay, so now let's go through the comparisons, because I want to go through and look through how everything looks from start to finish, because there was a lot that happened in prejudging. So let's kind of dissect it and see what happens. So we've now got everyone on the side, and we're going to do the top call outs to start off with. So I was in like the left-hand side of the stage, so I didn't see everything from the straight. I only saw everything from the side. So I'm excited to kind of see this. Okay, so they called out 6 girls, correct? Yes, so 6. So obviously with the Arnolds, they do top 6. So they don't do top 5, they award top 6. So obviously because there's only 10 of them, it was obviously going to be quite obvious that they were going to call out 6 to start off with. So you've got Amy straight in the middle. And I was shocked when Jazzy kind of got moved out straight to the side, because if I'm honest, I thought it was going to be a battle between Amy and Jasmine. I think a lot of people did, but I think Jazzy just came in just that little bit too hard, which obviously made things a little bit harder to judge against those two. But she still looked incredible. So it's just a case of obviously next time, just bring it even better than before. It's just glutes galore right now. Like honestly, the fullness in these girls' glutes was ridiculous in this call out. Everyone looks very comparable as well. Like everyone looks very similar. Like there's no one person that's really, really standing out with like, oh my God, big glutes, or oh my God, really out of proportion or anything like that. So this is really, really good to see because, again, that's what you want it to be. It needs to be very, very close, especially at a show like this. And I think they kind of, when they made their first move, they kind of knew this was going to kind of be that top level, because you can see, obviously, it's Amy and Vanya in the middle. Then you've got Ashlyn on the left side, Maria on the right. Then you've got Ari and Jazzy. So it kind of pretty much, it landed where it needed to be. I mean, I think that was it. Maybe there was one more movement. Yeah, so there wasn't much movement in that first call out. Now, the top three comparison is where a lot of the movement was done. So I think they were really trying to decide who was going to be where in that top three. So the final four, we've got Tamikia, Jordan Braden, Angelica, and Stassi. So you can see a difference in terms of the comparison. And I think these girls are just a little harder in the upper body. I see a comparison with Jordan and Tamikia, they just have a little bit more dense upper body, which maybe might be the reason why they're obviously in this second call out in terms of hardness and stuff like that. So that sometimes it might be a little bit more hardness, but obviously it makes a big difference. The same with Jazzy. Obviously she was a little harder this time, and obviously she got knocked down quite a few steps down. So it's when it's small changes that need to be made, it's small changes. It's nothing too big. So I think obviously what I look at when I see this front pose is obviously Jordan and Tamikia, just their upper body is just maybe a little bit too developed from everyone else in the first call outs. Okay, so now we've got the backwards call out where it kind of goes from like, I think it was 7th place or 8th place onwards to then top three. So when you look at the top three in the middle of Jazzy, Maria and Ari, you can see the difference in conditioning. You can see that Jazzy's just that little bit more conditioned in the back. I love it. I think it looks great, but it's just that little bit too much. I think Maria's probably the perfect amount of conditioning here at the moment. And Ari is actually a little bit softer than I thought she would be, but it works on her. I still think she probably needs to be a tiny little bit more conditioned. Keep the fullness she is, but just be a tiny bit more conditioned. I think then that will be her perfect physique that needs to be shown. Okay, so now we have the top three. This was where it became interesting because there was a lot of movement here. I do feel like they look very comparable. Ashlyn and Vanya look very comparable because they're same bikini, same height. I feel like very similar muscularity as well. So they looked more similar in my opinion when I was looking at them. Versus Amy looks like, quote unquote, the odd one out with a little bit more muscle in the lower half, right? If we see this glute shot in the back pose here, we can see the difference in the roundness. Like they all have very, very good roundness, but I do feel like Vanya's is probably the most from the bottom tie-in. That's what I noticed mainly is like she had more connection and more fullness at that bottom tie-in. So they moved a lot of people around. So obviously they moved Ashlyn in and then they continued to move people around. I think Vanya definitely has the best walk. She has probably the most control when she walks. She keeps the glutes up very, very still as well. And how she's getting in and out of her transitions, I also prefer. Like she's got a lot more control when it comes to posing things. You can also see the difference in waistlines in all of them. I do think that Amy probably has not the widest waist, but it's just like Ashlyn's and Vanya's waist are so small that Amy's looks very, very, very slightly bigger, even though her waist is so tiny. So I think this is always the thing. When you look at things, like when you minimize things and really look at everything, it's when someone else is on, it can potentially show your flaws, which is really tough when that does happen. So, but I really like the balance that Vanya has in this front pose. I think she's probably got the best amount of balance in everyone's shapes right now. Like she has a good glute pop, upper body's not too much, it's a good amount. They really work these girls though, because again, they haven't got an idea. They have an idea who they want, but they don't have a front runner in terms of like, you know, a previous Miss Olympia or anything like that to kind of quote unquote set the standard. So this is good. I liked the fact that we saw loads of movement going on because I feel like it needed to happen. But I think when they were looking at these kind of, you know, movements with everyone, I think they were trying to figure out who was going to be second and third. I think Vanya spent the most time in the middle. And I think they were trying to figure out maybe who was second and third between Amy and Ashlyn. So I think Amy was closer to third place than she was to first place. So if I remember correctly, the score, Vanya got 7. So it wasn't a perfect score, but she got probably a few second places, a few first places. Then Amy was second with 10. Then Ashley was third with 12. So it was very close to second and third, if I'm honest. And I think this was the deciding factor that we're trying to figure out when they've moved Ashlyn into the middle again. I think they were trying to figure out who was the second and who was the third. But again, this is all speculation. I always love looking back at this because I'm like, was this the way? Was this what they were thinking? Was this what the judges were thinking? And I'm sure we'll never actually fully know what the judges were thinking, but this is what I'm kind of thinking and looking at, I guess. I always find it so funny how everyone's front pose is always the same way. It's always facing this direction, or everyone always ends up being the same way in a front pose when it's like a top 3 or a top 2 or something like that. I find it so funny. And then we've got Amy back into the middle. And I think then that was when it finished. Yeah. So it was really interesting, like top 3. I think there was a lot, like I said, a lot of movement. So I think it was really interesting to kind of see how everything moved. And all the girls look spectacular. It's just a case now of obviously seeing who was the best out of all of them. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that whole look of everything and looking back on it because it was a lot of fun. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video. And if you haven't already heard about the posing portal, then let me just tell you a little bit about it. So it has almost been 4 weeks now since the posing portal app has been live, which is super, super exciting. It's been such a game changer to a lot of my clients and they've really enjoyed it because it's been so user friendly. The posing portal is an online app service that I have created to make posing so much more easier and more accessible for everyone anywhere in the world. And how I've done that is a collaboration of video libraries, posing check-ins, booking system, so you can book in posing sessions with me or one of my lovely coaches, and so much more. There's so many features on there that make posing just so much more accessible, so much easier to practice, and a lot more fun. So if you wanted to learn more, please head down to the link in the description box below and sign up to the posing portal today. If not, have a look at the posing portal website and you can see everything that we have to offer on the website moving forwards and stuff like that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Very excited to do more videos like this. What do you think about this whole lineup? Who was your favorite poser? Who was your favorite overall? And I'd love to know. So I love you guys so much and I will see you in the next one.